When a former royal faces Britain's sharpest wit on live television, the result isn't just awkward, it's explosive. Tonight, witness the moment Meghan Markle pushed Graham Norton past his breaking point, until he did the unthinkable. He kicked her off his show. It began like any other evening on the Graham Norton Show. The iconic red sofa gleamed beneath the purple studio lights, the audience buzzing with anticipation. Graham spun around in his chair, that mischievous grin already setting the tone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced grandly, "please welcome Meghan Markle." Polite applause rippled through the crowd as Meghan stepped out, elegant in a deep green dress, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She smiled, perfectly poised, raising a hand in a regal wave that felt more choreographed than warm. "Meghan, wonderful to have you here," Graham greeted, offering air kisses. "Thank you, Graham. Lovely to be here," she replied, voice smooth but cool. Her eyes flicked toward the cameras before settling on him. From the start, the tension was unmistakable. Not nerves, but a quiet contest of control. As they sat, Graham leaned in with his signature charm. "So, Meghan," he began, "the world seems to have quite a lot to say about you lately. You're practically keeping half the British tabloids in business. Is that the plan? Stimulate the economy single-handedly?" Laughter rippled through the audience. Meghan's smile, however, didn't reach her eyes. "Well, Graham," she said evenly, "I wouldn't expect you to understand what it's like living under constant attack. I wouldn't call it stimulating the economy. More like feeding vultures." "Oh, good heavens," Graham quipped, his eyebrow lifting just a little. "Feeding vultures? You've given them plenty to chew on, haven't you? The interviews, the book, the Netflix series." Meghan tilted her head, her smirk faint but sharp. "Tell me, Graham, are you here to interview me or just recycle headlines?" The audience laughed nervously. Graham's grin stiffened. He crossed one leg over the other and clasped his hands, still calm but tighter now. "Oh, these are my questions, Meghan," he said lightly, "though I imagine they're what everyone at home wants to hear." "Then perhaps," she replied coolly, "you should think about asking better questions." The temperature in the studio dropped. The playful banter had turned into open combat. Each exchange was a jab, each smile a blade. Finally, Graham set down his water glass and looked directly at her. "So, Meghan," he said softly, "you've always spoken about honesty and openness. Let's be honest, then. Do you ever regret leaving the royal family? Or is everything going exactly as you planned?" Meghan's expression hardened. "Regret?" she said after a pause. "No, I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. But leaving? Absolutely not." The audience sat frozen, watching two people who'd stopped pretending to be polite. Graham leaned forward, one elbow resting casually on his knee. "You say that quite convincingly," he said, his tone mild but his words sharp. "Though some might say you've made a career out of walking away from obligations." A soft gasp rippled through the audience. Meghan's head snapped toward him, her smile vanishing. "Excuse me? Is this how you treat all your guests, Graham? Or is this just for me?" "Oh no," he replied smoothly, the corner of his mouth lifting into that familiar smirk. "Just the special ones." Meghan gave a brittle laugh. "Well, I suppose you have to provoke someone to make good television." "Is that what this is? Because right now it feels more like bad therapy." The audience chuckled uncertainly, unsure whose side to take. "You know, Graham," she continued, her voice tightening, "for someone who lives off other people's stories, you're surprisingly bad at listening to them." Graham's eyes flickered, the charm slipping just slightly. "Oh, I listen," he said quietly. "I just know when a story's a performance instead of reality." That hit its mark. Meghan straightened in her seat, her voice cool and controlled. "Performance? Are you implying that my life is an act?" "Well," Graham replied lightly, "you are an actress." Gasps. Nervous laughter. Even the band in the corner exchanged uneasy glances. Meghan's cheeks flushed red. "You know what?" she said, her voice rising. "At least I know who I am. I'm not hiding behind a desk, tossing out cheap shots because I'm too afraid to take risks myself." Graham's mouth curved into a tight, humorless smile. "Well," he said evenly, "at least I don't mistake victimhood for courage." The room froze. A heavy silence fell over the studio. Meghan blinked, momentarily stunned before her composure returned. "You really think you're clever, don't you?" she said. "Mocking people's pain for ratings. Better than monetizing it," Graham shot back instantly. The air crackled with tension. Meghan leaned forward, eyes locked on his. "Careful, Graham," she hissed. "You're one question away from making a very big mistake." "Oh?" he said, his voice now matching her edge. "And what mistake would that be? Asking what everyone else is already thinking." Meghan's laugh came out sharp, humorless. "No, Graham. Forgetting that you're not untouchable." The silence that followed was deafening. The audience shifted nervously, afraid to even breathe. Graham leaned back slowly, steepling his fingers in front of his lips, studying her like an opponent across a chessboard. "Touché," he murmured at last. "But let's see how long you can keep this up." The tension was unbearable now. What had started as cheeky banter had become a duel of pride and wounded egos. Even the studio lights seemed to burn hotter. Meghan sat rigidly on the red sofa, arms crossed, eyes blazing. Graham's smirk had vanished, replaced by a stony calm that looked ready to crack. The audience, once laughing and clapping, now sat frozen. Finally, Graham broke the silence. "Well," he said dryly, "at least we can agree on one thing. You're consistent, consistently combative." Meghan let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You're hilarious, Graham." "A man who's made a career out of needling guests thinks I'm combative," Meghan said, leaning back with a dry laugh. "How original." Graham arched an eyebrow. "Not original, Meghan. Just accurate." She tilted her head, her tone pure venom. "Oh, do you get a medal every time you insult a guest? Just enough to make headlines, but not enough to get cancelled. That how this works?" The audience gasped, some nervously laughing. Graham's lips twitched, not into a smile but something colder. "Oh, don't flatter yourself. I've had far more challenging guests than you." Meghan leaned forward, voice dropping to a near whisper. "I'm sure you have. But tell me, how many of them walked off this stage wishing they'd never agreed to come here?" Graham's jaw flexed. He adjusted his cufflinks with deliberate calm before replying. "The ones who mistake accountability for cruelty usually do." For the first time, Meghan faltered. Just for a second. Then her chin lifted, her voice rising. "Oh, please, you're not holding anyone accountable. You're just another bitter old man pretending to be relevant by tearing people down." The words hung in the air like smoke. The studio went still. Even the band stopped moving. Graham's gaze hardened. "Cynical?" he repeated softly. "You're calling me cynical?" "That's right," Meghan said without hesitation. "Cynical, jaded, bitter. Take your pick." His nostrils flared slightly. "Better cynical than sanctimonious." Meghan's cheeks flushed, but her lips curled into a smirk. "That's cute, Graham. Really. Trying to turn this around on me. What do you do when you run out of clever insults?" He shifted in his seat, irritation now visible. "Oh, trust me," he said, voice low and edged. "I've got plenty left." Then Meghan made the mistake that crossed the line. "You know," she said, her tone mocking now, "I can see why you've never made it beyond this sofa. Too scared to do anything real. Too scared to create anything. Easier to sit here, safe, and snipe at people who actually take risks." The audience gasped again. Graham's expression darkened, his trademark color fading from his cheeks. "You think this isn't real?" he said, voice rising. "You think what I do has no value? That's rich, from someone who's turned victimhood into a brand." Meghan's eyes widened, then she laughed, a sharp, humorless sound that cut through the silence. "Oh, there it is, the truth at last. You just can't stand that I walked away and still became bigger than you'll ever be." Graham's voice cracked like thunder. "You think walking away makes you brave? You think abandoning responsibility and crying about it makes you admirable?" That was it. Meghan stood suddenly, her chair scraping the floor. The audience recoiled as the tension snapped. "You don't get to talk to me like that," she hissed. "You don't know me, Graham. You don't know what I've been through." "And you," he said evenly, his voice cold as glass, "don't know when to stop." They stood there now, both on their feet, the red sofa between them like a war line. Meghan crossed her arms, eyes blazing. You're pathetic. Graham smiled faintly, but his eyes were steel. And you're finished. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Even the lights seemed to dim, as if the studio itself recoiled. Meghan's fists clenched. Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You'll regret this. Graham's reply was just as quiet. Oh, my dear, he said. I already do. The silence that followed was suffocating. Neither moved. Neither blinked. It was no longer an interview. It was war. Neither of them was willing to back down. But everyone knew. Something had to give. The air was thick, the audience frozen in place. Meghan and Graham stood toe-to-toe, a battle of pride and wounded egos, each daring the other to blink first. But even the fiercest storms must end. And when this one did, it was brutal. No one in that studio would ever forget what happened next. Graham's charm faded first. His posture straightened, his eyes hardened. The teasing grin was gone, replaced by the steel of a man reclaiming control. He adjusted his jacket, smoothed his tie, and spoke, his voice calm, cold, and final. Meghan, he said evenly, I think we're done here. She blinked, thrown off balance. Excuse me? You heard me, Graham replied, standing tall. This stopped being productive 10 minutes ago. And as much as I adore spirited debate, he paused just long enough to twist the knife. I can't allow my show to become your personal therapy session. Gasps rippled through the audience. Meghan's mouth opened, but no words came at first. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled with disbelief. You're kicking me off your show? Graham's smirk returned, but it was colder now. Let's call it bringing the curtain down early. For everyone's sake, the producers froze. No one dared intervene. Meghan's fists clenched. You don't get to dismiss me like some forgettable guest. Oh, my dear, Graham cut in smoothly, raising a hand. I'm not dismissing you because you're forgettable. I'm dismissing you because you're unforgettable. For all the wrong reasons. The audience gasped again, some in shock, some in awe. A few even clapped before quickly stopping themselves. Meghan stood frozen, her eyes bright with fury. You'll regret this, she whispered. You think this makes you look strong? Graham's gaze didn't waver. No, Meghan, this isn't about strength. It's about respect, and you left yours at the door. That was it. Without another word, Meghan snatched her clutch from the sofa, lifted her chin, and turned for the exit. Her heels struck the stage like gunshots. The cameras followed every deliberate step. At the door, she paused once, looking back at him with a mix of defiance, anger, and something almost like regret. Then she was gone. The doors closed with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot in the silence. For a long moment, Graham didn't move. Then he exhaled, adjusted his jacket once more, and turned to the audience with a faint, wry smile. Well, he said lightly, I suppose we'll need a bigger sofa next time. The studio erupted. Part laughter, part nervous applause. The tension began to thaw, but the electricity in the air lingered. Everyone knew they'd just witnessed something historic. Even the band stumbled into a few awkward chords, trying to fill the silence. But eyes kept darting toward the door, half expecting Meghan to storm back in. She didn't. Outside, her heels echoed down the corridor, fast, furious, defiant. Already she was rewriting the story, already plotting her next move. But one thing was certain. No one in that studio would ever forget that night.